In a city where dreams were often broken by money and fear, two very different lives were about to collide. One belonged to Lily Parker, a quiet, hard-working nurse who believed that healing people was her only purpose. The other belonged to Ethan Cross, a powerful mafia boss whose name alone could freeze blood in the streets. They lived in the same city, breathed the same air, yet their worlds were separated by walls of danger and pain. Lily's life was simple and heavy at the same time. She worked long shifts at a public hospital, earning just enough to pay rent and cover her mother's medical bills. Every morning, she tied her hair neatly, wore her nurse uniform with pride, and promised herself she would survive one more day. She did not believe in miracles anymore, only in hard work. Ethan Cross, on the other hand, lived surrounded by luxury, guards, and silence. He owned expensive suits, fast cars, and dark secrets. People called him heartless, but no one truly knew what lived behind his cold eyes. That night, fate decided to bring these two worlds together in the most dangerous way. A violent gang fight broke out in the industrial area of the city, and bullets flew without mercy. Ethan was hit in the side, badly wounded, and losing blood fast. Calling the police was not an option. His men drove him through empty streets to the only place that could save him, a small city hospital that stayed quiet during night shifts. It was nearly midnight when Lily was called into the emergency room. She was tired, her feet aching after a long shift, but she moved quickly when she saw the injured man brought in secretly through the back door. The moment she looked at him, she felt something strange. His face was pale, jaw clenched in pain, yet his presence filled the room with a dangerous power. She did not know his name, but she felt the fear in the air. Men stood outside the room, watching her every move. One of them leaned close and spoke in a low, threatening voice, telling her that this patient must survive, no matter what. Lily's hands shook for a second, but she steadied herself. She was a nurse. Saving lives was her duty, not her choice. As she cleaned the wound and stopped the bleeding, Ethan slowly opened his eyes. Through pain and confusion, he noticed her calm face, the softness in her voice, and the way she focused only on her work, not on who he might be. Most people looked at him with fear or respect, but Lily looked at him like any other patient. That small moment stayed with him. When the danger passed and he was stable, Ethan was quietly taken away before morning. Lily thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. 2 days later, Lily's simple life was shattered. After her shift, she was stopped outside the hospital by a black car. Before she could react, men politely but firmly asked her to come with them. Fear filled her chest as she was driven to a massive mansion on the edge of the city. The gates closed behind her with a heavy sound that felt like a warning. Inside, she saw Ethan Cross again, sitting calmly despite his injury. This time, she knew who he was. The Mafia boss. The man people feared. Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not threaten her openly. Instead, he placed a document on the table. It was a contract. He explained that she would stay in his mansion as his personal nurse for 6 months, making sure he recovered fully and stayed healthy. In return, she would be paid well, and her mother's treatment would be fully covered. Lily's heart dropped when she realized the truth. This was not an offer. It was a trap dressed as kindness. When she tried to refuse, Ethan calmly told her what would happen if she walked away. Her mother's hospital support would be stopped, and Lily knew she could not survive that loss. Tears burned in her eyes as she read the contract. It felt like her freedom was being signed away. She was angry, scared, and deeply hurt. But she thought of her mother lying weak on a hospital bed, depending on her. With shaking hands, Lily signed the paper. In that moment, she felt like her life no longer belonged to her. Ethan watched her quietly, feeling something he did not expect, guilt. He had forced many deals before, but this one felt different. That night, Lily was shown to a room inside the mansion. It was beautiful, but it felt like a golden cage. She sat on the bed, holding back sobs, trying to understand how her life had changed so fast. She was a nurse, not a criminal, not someone meant for this dark world. Yet she was here, bound by a contract signed under pressure. Down the hall, Ethan stood alone by a window, staring at the city lights. He told himself this was only business, only survival. Still, the image of Lily's trembling hands refused to leave his mind. That was the beginning of a storm neither of them could escape, a story born from fear, forced possession, and a contract that would slowly turn into something neither had planned. The morning sun entered the mansion through tall glass windows, but for Lily Parker, it felt like no light could reach her heart. She woke up in a bed softer than anything she had ever slept on, yet her body felt heavy, as if chains were wrapped around her freedom. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality returned, the contract, the Mafia boss, the mansion that was not a home. She took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was here. Her mother's life depended on her strength. That single thought pushed her out of bed and into the role she had promised to play, not by choice, but by sacrifice. From the first day, Lily decided she would not behave like a prisoner. She would behave like a nurse. She met Ethan Cross in the private medical room prepared inside the mansion. The room looked more advanced than many hospitals she had worked in, yet it lacked warmth. Ethan sat on the bed, his expression unreadable, his sharp eyes following her every move. Lily checked his wound, changed bandages, and spoke only when necessary. She did not flatter him, did not show fear, and did not ask unnecessary questions. This confused Ethan more than open resistance would have. He was used to people either trembling before him or trying to impress him. Lily did neither. She treated him like a human being who needed care, nothing more, nothing less. As days passed, Lily learned the rhythm of the mansion. Armed guards stood at every corner, cameras watched silently, and rules were strict. She was allowed to move only in certain areas and only at certain times. At night, the silence felt louder than noise. Lily often stood by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering how many people lived freely out there, unaware of how quickly life could trap someone. She missed the hospital chaos, the smell of disinfectant, even the exhaustion of double shifts. This place was rich, but it felt empty. Ethan observed Lily closely, though he pretended not to care. He noticed how she reminded him to take medicine even when he ignored pain, how she argued softly but firmly when he skipped meals, and how she never accepted his authority over her work. One afternoon, irritated by her calm defiance, he asked her directly if she was not afraid of him. Lily paused, looked him straight in the eyes, and told him the truth. She said she was afraid, but fear did not give him the right to control her soul. Those words hit Ethan harder than any bullet ever had. No one had spoken to him like that since his childhood. In the shadows of the mansion, Grace, Ethan's most trusted and ruthless associate, watched everything carefully. She did not like Lily. Grace believed emotions were weakness, and Lily's presence felt like a crack forming in Ethan's armor. She warned him that keeping a civilian so close was dangerous, that emotions could destroy everything he had built. Ethan listened, but for the first time. He did not fully agree. Something about Lily's honesty disturbed his carefully controlled world. At night, Lily secretly spoke to Ava, her best friend from the hospital, using a hidden phone she managed to keep. Ava cried hearing Lily's situation, begging her to escape, but Lily knew escape was not simple. She explained the contract, her mother's treatment, and the invisible chains holding her there. Ava reminded her of who she was, a woman with dignity, courage, and a heart stronger than fear. Those conversations became Lily's emotional lifeline, helping her survive the long nights when loneliness pressed hard against her chest. Slowly, small changes happened without anyone planning them. Ethan started waiting for Lily's visits. He listened when she talked about real-life struggles, rent, unpaid bills, sick parents, tired nights. These were stories no one had ever shared with him honestly. His world was built on power, money, and fear, but Lily's world was built on endurance and hope. It confused him, but it also fascinated him. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace when someone spoke to him without wanting anything in return. Lily, too, felt a strange shift inside herself. She still hated the contract, hated the control, and hated the fear, but she began to see Ethan not just as a mafia boss, but as a wounded man trapped by his own past. She reminded herself every day not to forget who he was and why she was there. Still, the lines between duty and emotion slowly began to blur. This part of their journey was quiet on the outside but intense within. No gunshots, no romance, no promises, just two broken worlds slowly observing each other. Lily was still a nurse fighting for survival. Ethan was still a gang boss ruling through power. Yet somewhere deep beneath the contract and the guarded walls, something dangerous and unexpected was beginning to grow, setting the stage for a storm that would test them both far beyond fear. Time moved differently inside the mansion, as if the outside world no longer followed the same clock. Days blended into nights, and Lily slowly realized that survival here was not only about obeying rules but about protecting her own heart. Ethan's wound was healing, yet something deeper inside him seemed restless, almost exposed. The more Lily worked around him, the more she sensed the silent weight he carried. He was surrounded by people all the time, yet he was painfully alone. This realization did not bring sympathy easily, instead, it confused her. She reminded herself again and again that this man had forced her into this life. Still, emotions do not follow contracts, and Lily felt the tension growing inside her, like a quiet storm waiting to break. One late evening, while checking Ethan's vitals, Lily noticed his hands shaking slightly. It was not pain this time. When she asked if he was feeling unwell, he avoided her eyes and dismissed it as tiredness. But Lily had seen many patients hide their truth behind strength. Later that night, she found him sitting alone in a private lounge, staring at an old photograph. It showed a young boy standing beside a woman with tired but loving eyes. Without thinking, Lily asked who they were. Ethan did not answer immediately. Silence filled the room, heavy and honest. Finally, he spoke, telling her it was his mother and that she had died when he was still a teenager. His voice was steady, but Lily could hear the pain beneath it. He spoke about growing up poor, about hunger, street fights, and learning too early that power was the only way to survive. Lily listened quietly, understanding that this was not a confession meant for comfort, but a truth he had never shared with anyone. From that night on, Ethan began to open doors he had kept locked for years. He spoke about choices he regretted, people he lost, and the constant fear of betrayal that followed him even in moments of success. Lily did not excuse his actions, but she understood where the darkness had come from. She told him that pain explained behavior but did not justify it. Those words stayed with him. For the first time, someone saw him not as a legend or a monster, but as a man shaped by circumstances and fear. That honesty made him uncomfortable, yet he could not push her away. Danger, however, never left Ethan's world. One night, the mansion was attacked by a rival gang trying to weaken his control. Gunshots echoed through the halls, alarms screamed, and chaos erupted. Lily was caught in the middle while trying to reach the medical room. A bullet grazed her arm, and blood stained her uniform. When Ethan saw her injured, something inside him snapped. He dragged her to safety himself, ignoring his own risk. The fear in his eyes was raw and real, not the fear of losing power, but the fear of losing her. That moment changed everything. Lily saw it clearly then, she mattered to him in a way no contract could define. After the attack, Ethan increased security but also changed his behavior. He moved Lily to a safer part of the mansion, gave her more freedom, and reduced guards around her. Grace noticed these changes immediately. She confronted Ethan, accusing him of letting emotions weaken him. She reminded him of enemies, betrayals, and the cost of attachment. Ethan listened, but his voice was firm when he replied that he would not apologize for protecting someone innocent. Grace saw the danger clearly then, not from rival gangs, but from love growing where fear once ruled. Lily struggled deeply during this time. She was torn between anger and understanding, between resentment and compassion. She hated that her feelings were shifting, hated that she cared about a man who represented everything she feared. At night, she questioned herself, wondering if kindness could truly change someone born into violence. Yet every day she saw Ethan trying, slowly and imperfectly, to be better. The contract still existed, but its power was fading, replaced by something far more complicated. This part of their story was where masks began to fall. Ethan's crown of control cracked, revealing the wounded boy beneath. Lily's shield of professionalism weakened, revealing a woman capable of seeing light even in darkness. Neither of them spoke about love, but both felt its presence like a quiet threat. What began as forced possession was now turning into a bond neither had planned, and the storm ahead promised to test whether this connection would heal them, or destroy them both. As the days passed after the attack, a heavy silence settled between Lily and Ethan, not the cold silence of fear but the thoughtful silence of two people standing at the edge of a truth they were both afraid to name. Lily's arm healed, but the incident left a deeper mark on her heart. She could not forget the way Ethan had looked at her that night, the raw panic in his eyes, the way his hands had shaken while holding pressure on her wound. That was not the face of a mafia boss protecting his asset, it was the face of a man terrified of losing someone who mattered. Lily tried to push that memory away, telling herself it was dangerous to read emotions into moments of chaos, yet her heart refused to listen to reason. Ethan, meanwhile, was fighting a battle inside himself that no enemy could see. For years, he had lived by strict rules: control everything, trust no one, feel nothing. But Lily had quietly broken all of them. Her presence made him question his choices, his power, and the life he had built on fear. Guilt began to haunt him, especially when he thought about the contract. What had started as a way to survive had turned into a chain he no longer wanted to hold. He noticed Lily's quiet strength, her loneliness, and the way she still carried herself with dignity despite everything he had forced upon her. The realization that he had taken her freedom weighed heavily on him. And for the first time, guilt felt stronger than pride. The truth finally surfaced one evening when Lily discovered that her mother's surgery had been completed successfully and fully paid for. When she asked the hospital how it was possible, the answer led straight back to Ethan. Shock and anger filled her chest as she confronted him. She accused him of controlling her life from the shadows, of deciding her fate without asking. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with pain. Ethan listened without interrupting, absorbing every word like punishment he knew he deserved. When she finished, he told her quietly that he had done it not as a boss, not as part of the contract, but because he cared. That honesty broke the wall Lily had built around her heart. She cried, not out of gratitude, but out of confusion, because kindness coming from the man who had imprisoned her felt too complicated to accept. That night, Ethan made a decision that shocked even himself. He told Lily that the contract was over, that she was free to leave whenever she wanted. There were no threats, no conditions, no hidden traps. He admitted that keeping her against her will had become unbearable to him. Lily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Freedom was what she had dreamed of every night, yet now that it was offered, her heart ached at the thought of leaving. She realized then how deeply entangled their lives had become. What frightened her most was not Ethan's power, but her own feelings. As if fate wanted to test them further, the outside world began closing in. Police pressure increased, and old enemies resurfaced. Grace was arrested during a raid, and her betrayal revealed how fragile Ethan's empire truly was. Facing the consequences of his past, Ethan decided to surrender and cooperate with authorities, choosing accountability over escape. He told Lily he did not deserve happiness and that his choices had already cost too many lives. Lily begged him not to disappear from her life completely, telling him that change mattered, that the future was not written only by the past. Their farewell was quiet, filled with unspoken love and overwhelming sadness, a bittersweet pause before destiny took control. This part of their story was not about romance blooming openly, but about truth cutting deep. Love grew in the space between guilt and forgiveness, between freedom and responsibility. Both Lily and Ethan stood transformed, no longer the nurse and the gang boss bound by a contract, but two human beings facing the cost of their choices. The storm had not ended, but it had cleared enough for them to see who they truly were, and what they might become if they survived what came next. Life has a quiet way of moving forward even after the loudest storms, and for Lily Parker, the days that followed Ethan's surrender felt unreal, as if she were walking through a world that no longer fit her the same way. She returned to her small apartment, to the narrow streets and the familiar hospital corridors, yet everything felt changed. Freedom tasted different now, heavier and more thoughtful. She threw herself into work, choosing longer shifts and volunteering for difficult cases, not to escape memories but to remind herself who she was. Caring for patients grounded her, but at night, when silence filled the room, thoughts of Ethan returned uninvited. She wondered if he was safe, if he was strong enough to face the consequences of a life built on violence, and whether people could truly change when given the chance. Ethan's world collapsed before it rebuilt. Prison stripped him of power, wealth, and fear-based respect. There were no guards to protect him, no deals to save him. For the first time, he lived without control, and it terrified him. Yet in that fear, something unexpected happened. He found clarity. Therapy sessions forced him to confront his past honestly, to face the trauma, anger, and survival instincts that had shaped him into a criminal leader. Letters from Lily, carefully written and full of quiet encouragement, became his anchor. She never promised love, never made excuses for his actions, but she believed in his ability to become better, and that belief slowly rebuilt him from the inside. 2 years passed, slow and difficult. Ethan was released on parole, no longer the Mafia boss the city once feared, but a man determined to live differently. He invested what remained of his legal assets into a small security firm, choosing protection over control. He avoided old contacts, cut ties with the underground world, and accepted the loneliness that came with starting over. Grace served her sentence, sending letters filled with regret and reflection, while Ava moved abroad after marriage, proud of Lily's strength and survival. The storm that once trapped them all had scattered their lives in different directions, yet its lessons remained. One quiet afternoon, fate reunited Lily and Ethan at a small cafe near the hospital where Lily now worked. There were no guards, no luxury cars, no fear. Just two people sitting across from each other, older, calmer, and marked by experience. They spoke about simple things: work stress, sleepless nights, hopes for the future. Ethan apologized again, not for the contract alone, but for every moment he had taken her choice away. Lily listened, seeing sincerity where power once lived. She told him that forgiveness was not forgetting, but choosing to move forward honestly. Their relationship did not rush into romance. It grew slowly, carefully, built on respect and shared scars. They walked through parks, argued about small things, and learned how to trust without control. Love, for them, was not dramatic or perfect, it was patient, responsible, and real. Lily remained a nurse, committed to healing others, while Ethan continued his work, determined to protect rather than harm. Together, they proved that destiny does not erase the past, but it can transform it. In the end, nurse versus gang boss. A sweet contract sparks love, from forced possession to destiny, a bittersweet romance storm hits. Was not a story of fairy tale rescue, but of survival, accountability, and growth. Their love was born from pain, tested by truth, and shaped by change. After the storm passed, what remained was not perfection, but something far more powerful, a future chosen freely, built together, and earned through courage.